welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. The Monroe County Commissioners held a work session on July 9th. County officials say the jail has reached a crisis point, from overcrowding to extreme heat and deteriorating conditions. Sheriff Ruben Marte says transporting inmates is becoming unavoidable.
We have to be able to provide a constitutional jail. That is my responsibility. And I'll tell you that we have, and we're at a point now that is very challenging for us to do that.
Chief Deputy Phil Parker said the jail's official bed count can look misleading and does not tell the full story.
If you look at the combination of those beds that are available in there, that takes that 294 down to 233. That available general housing beds. So the functional capacity, let me explain what that is. That's an accepted correctional planning principle that says you are functionally full when you reach 80% of availability for those beds. So if we follow that logic to get to functional capacity here, Cal, you step in if I say anything that's incorrect, because he's forgot more about this than I know. Our true functional capacity in that facility is 186.
Jail Commander Kyle Gibbons maintained that they're struggling to keep inmates cool, fearing the overheating issue may lead to a crisis.
One of the things that we did almost immediately was open up the block as much as possible. When I say the block, I mean the cells inside of it. So there's a time where inmates, we lock down the facility midnight and we allow inmates to have proper sleep. We can't even lock inmates inside their cell because it's 85, 90 degrees inside those cells. It's 75 to 84 degrees inside the block, depending on the day.
Parker says inmate grievances are building toward litigation, making the situation even more dire.
They're being inundated with grievances from the facility, about the facility, and rightfully so. But there's a thing that we call in our line of work, it's called a clue. And what the clue here is those grievances are protest the condition of that facility, but they serve another purpose. And that purpose is to satisfy the administrative remedies of going through the grievance process to get to litigation. Commissioner Madeira knows exactly what I'm talking about here. So the clue here is for us is we're not just living on borrowed time. This litigation is coming our way, and hence that also weighs into what we're here to talk to you about. We are in an imminent situation. I believe that. I know the sheriff believes that. I know Kyle believes that we wouldn't be here.
Gibbons brought up the politics of the new jail. However, in his view, the conditions of the current jail are being left out of the conversation.
There's a lot of talk about what's going to happen, what property we're going to have, what services we're going to provide, what the facility is going to look like, whether we're going to bring the courts with it. At the end of the day, and this is what the sheriff was just saying, since the very beginning, people have talked about what's going to happen, and not a lot of people are talking about what's happening. And we refuse to look past the needs of the people inside of that facility. We refuse. And we've done everything we can. And we're here now, starting this project saying, we've done everything we can, now we need help.
The commissioners unanimously approved a resolution declaring an emergency at the county jail. The resolution allows county officials to begin the process of transferring inmates to neighboring jails. The Collaborative Justice Project Working Subcommittee narrowed its list of potential locations for a new jail during their meeting on July 6, reducing the primary focus to 5 sites. The committee will focus on renovating the current Justice Building along with the Curry property, Tapp Road North, Tapp Road South, Thompson, and Fullerton sites.
That we're considering is the Curry Building with renovations to the current site, The second one is Tap Road North. The third one is Tap Road South. The fourth is the Thompson property. And then the fifth is the Fullerton property.
Yes.
And then as property alternates for consideration, if none of those work out or we need more information, those include potentially Hopewell West, Hopewell East, the HT building, and then potentially private lot 1, depending on what happens in executive session.
Several other sites were removed from consideration because of the floodways, limited space, planned development, or unavailability.
Well, the Bloomington Transit Garage, it looks like the owner's not willing to sell the property, so that would pretty much take it off the table.
And it's in a floodway.
The committee members also agreed to evaluate the sites using the square footage of the county's August 2025 jail design instead of a specific bed count, saying the design provides enough space to meet constitutional standards of care.
If you use the square footage from the August 29th, 2025 meeting, that blueprint was based on a design that remedies these constitutional conditions. And so in essence, if you're using that square footage, then it would meet constitutional care.
The committee met again on July 9th to further discuss the evaluation of the sites. The discussion centered on factors including floodways, single versus multi-story construction, and each site's proximity to transportation and community services. Mayor Carrie Thompson suggested the committee focus on treating all 5 locations as viable options.
We had discussed last time, at the end of last meeting, how we would approach this discussion. We talked about eliminating any properties that really were not viable. I just wanted to share that after going through this documentation, as long as we do not take some of the assumptions as foregone conclusions, such as it must be co-located and it has to be single story, I don't see anything that eliminates any of the 5 choices that we have remaining. I think they're all still viable. And I would suggest that we have a conversation about at least how we're going to prioritize them and lenses with which we're looking. I'm eager to hear public comment in 28 minutes, and that will definitively influence how I think about this. But I already have some thoughts on ease of development and other things. So I don't know if somebody on the team has thought about how to prioritize or if we want to make individual comments about that.
Before opening the floor to public comment, the committee agreed on a voting process that will require rankings and written explanations for all 5 proposed sites. During public comment, Seth Muchler with Care Not Cages urged the committee to support the group's preferred location.
By saying that I would ask you all to vote in favor of renovation of the existing Zietlow building with the possible addition of the Curry and Fiscus building. I personally feel that is the best choice of the options available. Right, this is a very complicated issue. There are a lot of things, so that's where I will say I will ask you to look at the things that have already been sent. But especially as you are going to be working over the weekend, as you said, we at Care Not Cages humbly are very proud of the many years of research and scholarship that collectively we have done on this topic, and we would love to be a resource for you all. We would also love to be a resource for the public. So if anybody has questions and would like to say, hey, Care Not Cages has read way too many white papers about this, our email is carenotcages.monroecounty@gmail.com. We'll be checking the email over the weekend, so if any of you are like, hey, what about this? Any of the members of the public, if you're like, single story, multi-story, what's up with that? We have answers to that that take longer to answer than 3 minutes, but are relatively short. So thank you all for your time. Appreciate you.
Monroe County Commissioner Jody Madeira then spoke, emphasizing the significance of the decision.
This isn't about creating comfort for comfort's sake, it's about reducing harm. Research shows that environmental stressors, constant noise, heat, poor ventilation, lack of privacy, lack of movement, and lack of control over one's immediate environment can increase anxiety, irritability, conflict, illness, and even suicide risk. The same is true for green space and perimeter design. Even passive exposure to vegetation within secure perimeters has been associated with reduction in self-harm, violence, and staff sick leave. That should matter to anyone concerned about human dignity, workplace safety, and public responsibility. Jail design is a decades-long decision. If we build a facility around outdated assumptions, poor visibility, excessive hardening, stacked housing, and inefficient circulation, well, we're going to live with those consequences for generations. But if we build around evidence-based principles, direct supervision, modular housing, safer sightlines, acoustic normalization, accessibility, and humane environmental conditions, we can create a facility that's safer for staff, safer for incarcerated people, and more responsible for the public. And we're in luck. What's best is also what is cheapest and quickest to build. Multi-level facilities are expensive to build, to staff, and to maintain. So the question isn't simply where to build or how cheaply it can be built or how quickly square footage can be stacked. It's what kind of jail we're willing to build. Monroe County can't afford to reproduce the failures of the past. Thank you.
The committee's next meeting, where members are expected to vote on their site recommendations, is scheduled for Monday, July 13th. The Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission met on July 9th. City of Bloomington Attorney Dana Kerr gave updates on a legal brief regarding the Historic Preservation Commission's ability to rescind previous decisions.
Again, the state legislature has said that the final decision by this body is reviewed by judicially, and this as would be the BZA. So when this Supreme Court is talking about the BZA and what its abilities to do, it treats this body just like the BZA does in the statute. So I am 100% confident that the Indiana Supreme Court would treat this body reconsidering a decision it has made the same as for this body as it would the BZA. So reconsidering a decision that has already been made would be inappropriate in the City of Bloomington's legal department opinion, and that is what our advice is to this body. And as you can see, there's strong public policy on that. If these decisions could be changed at any point in time, there would be so much uncertainty. Developers, in this case, would not know what they could do or what they couldn't do.
This announcement comes in response to the push to rescind the Commission's previous decision regarding Seminary Point. According to Kerr, the Indiana Supreme Court has set precedents that the Board of Zoning Appeals and other similar bodies should not be able to change previously made decisions. Commissioner Raynard Cross challenged this precedence and its application to the Seminary Point ruling.
Were the circumstances of this case that you cite one where the body broke its own rules, it was under strong objections of its members, certainly 3 of them, it was under strong objection by members of the public, and something that had been established by the body's own rules, both ones that were codified and ones set in precedence, were all breached. I'm asking because a lot of times different circumstances surrounding a decision might sway some people. And again, I was in the courtroom when it was argued. I got this memo literally minutes before. I haven't done my research. Again, it is your brief, and a legal brief is representative of the lawyers that produced that brief, that is their opinion. Drawing on this gentleman here, I have enough experience to learn that 2 people looking on the same thing might come to a completely different conclusion.
The Commission also amended the previous meeting's minutes to reflect details about the discussion of demolition delays. The staff of the Commission announced that they approved certificates of appropriateness to replace a limestone retaining wall, the construction of a hoop house in a side yard, and the installation of a chain link fence. During final Commissioner comments, Commissioner John Butler also stated that the case of Seminary Point may indicate a need to reconsider the Commission's standards for a historic place.
They didn't get a fair shake the first meeting, and despite my best efforts, they didn't get another fair shake tonight. We made a mistake last time. I wish there was a way that we could rectify that. Apparently there's not. I would encourage them to try to rectify that in any way that they can, and I'm sure that there is somebody that will oversee us. I also think there were some mistakes made by fellow commissioners in judging the buildings too harshly, and so I would like to read the criteria for historical designation so that we can think about that. So, building must be 50 years old, which it was. It says nothing about notable, outstanding, contributing, or non-contributing. A, it must embody those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural or engineering type, which it did. B and C are very specific, so I won't bother you with those, and did not apply. D, it contains elements of design, detail, materials, or craftsmanship which represent a significant innovation. The corner windows and the angled front buttresses could be argued that, but maybe not. But they definitely qualify for E, contains any architectural style, detail, or other element in danger of being lost, or visual feature of a neighborhood or the city. And F, owing to its unique location or physical characteristics, represents established and or familiar visual feature of a neighborhood or of the city. You can literally vote to say something because it has established characteristics. That's how broad our mandate is. Don't surrender these buildings just because you've got a bad feeling about it.
The Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission will meet again on July 23rd. The Monroe County Board of Commissioners met on July 9th. Health Administrator Lori Kelly reported on a cyclospora outbreak from raw fruits and vegetables, saying that there are cases in Indiana.
There is currently a gastrointestinal illness that's going around that's caused by a parasite. Several states, including Indiana, have reported cases. This is called cyclospora, and it's thought to be linked to raw vegetables and fruits. But the CDC is still working to identify the source at this time.
Next, the commissioners heard a contract continuation between Indiana Youth Services Association and the Youth Services Bureau of Monroe County for an annual amount of $9,880. A representative of the program walked through the agreement.
I'm here on behalf of our Safe Place contract continuation. This is just approving our Safe Place contract between Indiana Youth Services Association and the Youth Services Bureau of Monroe County. It will be in effect from July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2028.
The commissioners approved the agreement by a 2-0 vote. Then the board heard a presentation regarding the redirection of more than $315,000 in unused federal American Rescue Plan Act funding. The commissioners will review recommendations from the County Council to move the money into ambulance purchases, improvements at Cars Farm Park, and airport drainage upgrades. County Auditor Carly Woodruff explained the situation.
Yes, so at the meeting on the 30th, the council made appropriations contingent on commissioner action as a recommendation for how the ARPA dollars that are in excess for some of the projects should be reallocated. The auditor's advisement is that we reallocate those dollars within the open projects. Right now, there are 3 open projects that are requesting additional funding, and all 3 of those projects were tentatively appropriated. The appropriation amounts, if you'd like me to go over those, would be $200,000 to the Monroe Fire Ambulance Project, $100,000 to the Cars Park Field Project, and $15,225.41 to the Airport Stormwater Drainage Project.
The board voted 2-0 to affirm the council's deappropriation motion and appropriation motion. The Ellettsville Parks and Recreation Board met on July 6. Members of the board, led by President Jimmy Durnall, first discussed ideas on how to improve the Ellettsville 5K race on September 19th. This was brought up by Ellettsville Parks and Recreation Sports Director Rick Plunkett, who went on to describe the event in its totality and how all areas of the event can be improved, preferably the parking.
And parking is still going to be feral.
It's going to be a challenge, yeah.
Investments in the Marcy J. Lewis Park, which is the parking lot that far. I walk a lot further to run races myself for races. I'm going to try to get a hold of the Lutheran Church, but they never return my calls.
The board discussed creating a Facebook event for details on parking and overall better engagement with the Ellettsville 5K race itself. The final item discussed on the agenda were plans going into the next year, with current President Jimmy Durnall planning to turn over the presidency of the Ellettsville Parks and Recreation Board to someone else.
So be thinking about that between now and then. I'd say Ronnie would be a good candidate for that.
We'll see.
Durnall was referring to Vice President Ronnie Van Deventer. The next meeting of the Ellettsville Parks and Recreation Board will be on August 12th. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.
you.